Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the October meeting of the Planning Board here at Town of Kent. Could we all rise for the pledge? Possibly. Well, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we begin, just have a notice to read out. The Town of Kent Planning Board will be adjusting the order of the published agenda for the convenience of the board this evening, which allows the attendance of the Town of Kent Planning Board attorney for some items that are on the agenda. We will, as the Planning Board requires we require his assistance in those items. So all items on the published agenda will be heard, but not necessarily in the order noted in the published agenda. So what we're going to start off with is Beardwood Williams property.
I'll remind everybody, I'll remind everybody that I'm quite hard of hearing, so if you could elevate your voice for my benefit, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And also use the microphone.
State your name.
Hi, James Hartford from River Architects, talking to you about the Beardwood Willans project. It's misspelled in there. I just want to make sure there's a clarification.
What was it supposed to be spelled?
Willans, Willins.
Oh, okay.
Willins.
Sorry about that.
Great. So we've got a project that we've got an existing house on Sagamore Lake, and it's on Sagamore Drive. The plan is to demolish the existing house and rebuild so that it's not, the house itself is not in the wetlands buffer zone as it currently is. It's an older house from the probably dating back from the 40s. It's been added on to over years, and our goal is to make it a passive house so it's not consuming any fossil fuels, and that it's pulled back entirely from the wetlands buffer zone, with the exception of a screened porch and a patio that would be sitting on the same footprint pretty much as the existing house is now. So we've submitted drawings, and we've got some comments back from the consultants. The problem is that we just got comments back today, so there's a lot that needs to be addressed, and so I can't say that it's we're in a great position to submit, even though we've got a site plan we've been working on actually with the consultants for a while. We have a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and a lot of work that we feel is moving in the right direction. It's just that some of these comments are substantial enough that we need more time to respond to. The challenging thing is that we did meet the deadline for this month, and so these comments are a bit untimely. So I request that we get a workshop so that we're better prepared for November, just so we're not losing more time.
I know.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening, I'm Bruce Barber, the town's environmental planning consultant. We've had an opportunity to review this a few times. They also met with us on Zoom meetings. As James indicated, this is a tear down of an existing home and reconstruction of a new residence a little bit further away from the lake in a positive direction. In our reviews, basically, there's very few comments that I have, and I believe John also has as well. But one comment is that in speaking with Mr. Walters, the building inspector, it was determined that there is a need for zoning variance, which was discussed at the last Zoom meeting with the applicant, due to the fact that the property is of insufficient size based on current zoning and the fact that the existing house is being torn down. So what we would recommend to the board to do this evening is, number one, is to ask the applicant to be referred to Mr. Walters to go through the process of obtaining a variance that is required for this application. And then, based upon what we have remaining from the memos that I've done and what John has completed, I think it would be prudent for the board to schedule a public hearing for this application for the November meeting. Hopefully, they'll be able to go through the zoning board and get completed what needs to be done there and come back for the public hearing. And if not, of course, then the board can just adjourn that meeting until at such time they're done with the zoning board. So that's our suggestion for this evening. Any questions? Okay. You're welcome.
I really appreciate that. That's very helpful. Thank you.
John, do you have anything?
My name is John Andrews. I serve as engineering consultant to the planning board. I'm going to echo with what Bruce said. We do have a comment memo, and I just want to remind everybody, this was submitted originally in August. They slightly missed a deadline. It came in after the 12 noon deadline. So it was not on the September agenda. We received the September comments late. There apparently was a submittal that Bruce and I didn't get. So our comments were based on something over a month put aside. They've been on Zoom a couple times, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't serve to move the application ahead any farther because we still need to look at the plans, we still need to look at the responses. So the comment memos that Bruce and I have done, none of the issues are substantive, and I would echo Bruce's comment that it would be our recommendation that you schedule a public hearing for your next meeting and allow them time to go to ZBA, and I'm sure they can address our comments in a submission between now and then, and everything being done, you could open and close the public hearing. If not everything is done, you can open and continue the public hearing as necessary, but at least we move this ahead. So again, I echo Bruce's comments.
Okay, and I believe the next meeting's on the 14th of November. So, oh.
Good evening, Bill Walters, Building Inspector. One of the things you want to look at is go to the town webpage for the zoning board variances. The dates are listed there. You're coming up close for the deadline for the November meeting, so we need to get that in pretty quick or you'll be a month behind everything else. So, all right?
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. And yes, we have our application ready to submit for November for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We actually did hit this deadline for this month. The material is submitted and on time. I don't know why the consultants didn't receive our responses, but they were in on time for this hearing. So, but I appreciate the comments that we got back today. Thank you.
Okay, and I think all we're doing is the public hearing for,
So you want to refer this to Mr. Walters for review of the zoning board, and 2, you would schedule this for your next public hearing, which would be November
14th, I believe. 14th. All right, we would like to refer this project on the address 127 Sagamore Drive to Bill Walters in reference to the zoning discrepancies. And also, I'd like to make a motion to set up a public hearing for the said property for the 14th of November.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Done.
Okay.
Joe has arrived, so if you want to jump back to the...
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Okay. So we are going to go to Morrow Equipment.
Good evening. For the record, Jennifer Gray from the law firm of Keene and Bean, representing Morrow Equipment for tonight's application. Since your last meeting, we submitted a pretty voluminous submission on September 26th for your submission deadline. We have received, in response, the draft Part 2 of the EAF that was prepared by your consultants. We received that yesterday, along with the narrative comments to go along with it. We've had a chance to review that. While we respectfully disagree with the items that have been marked moderate to large impact on the Part 2, and we can explain to you tonight in detail with respect to each one of those items why we believe it should be changed to no or small impact. What really matters is that even if something's marked moderate to large impact, we want to make sure that it's understood that that does not automatically mean that the impact is significant. That's a determination that's within your discretion based on the record before you. So in the EAF Part 3, obviously that's your opportunity to explain for any of those items in the Part 2 that are marked moderate to large impact. You would explain in the Part 3, which is the next step, why for each of those items that particular category will not result in a significant adverse environmental impact. And we respectfully submit that based on the record before you, that includes all the submissions that we've made to date, all of the discussions that have been had at the various meetings that we've attended over the past several months, that it can't possibly reasonably lead to a conclusion other than there is no significant adverse environmental impact here. And we're prepared to go through every submission that we've made on the traffic, on the noise, on visual, on the paint booth and the wash building and the stormwater. We can go through all of that in detail tonight and walk through each one of those issues and explain why there's no significant adverse environmental impact as a result of all of those things. We're happy to do that tonight. We'd rather not take up your time. I know you have a very large agenda tonight. If there are specific issues or questions that you have that you'd like us to address, we're happy to focus on that. But we do believe that we've answered all of the questions that have been asked in detail. Again, if you have specific questions, we're happy to review that material. Otherwise, we'd ask that at the end of this discussion, that you direct preparation of the Part 3 for your next meeting for the adoption of a negative declaration. I will say that, so we are before the zoning board as well, and I want to give you a brief update on our zoning board application. There are two interpretations that are before the zoning board and 3 variances. We've asked the zoning board to determine that the crane is not a quote-unquote building under your code and therefore not subject to the building height requirement. And also that the crane is not a non-conforming use in the code. We met with the zoning board at their workshop meeting on Monday, and we had a very favorable discussion with them. We have our continued public hearing in a week and a half, 2 weeks, on those requests. The 3 variances that are before the board are, well, actually now it's only 2. If the zoning board, the majority of the zoning board at the workshop did opine that they do not believe the crane is a building under the code, and they do not believe the crane is a non-conforming use. So I think we're going to get favorable determinations ultimately on those 2 issues. Therefore, we will not need a height variance for the crane. So the 2 variances that are left are the outdoor storage. The height of the outdoor storage is limited in your code to 10 feet. We're asking for 32 to allow for 4 8-foot stacks of crane to be stacked up to minimize the footprint of the outdoor storage area. Obviously, if those crane stacks are shorter, we're going to need more space in the outdoor storage yard. And then the other variance is for the light poles in the rear, the storage yard, to allow those light poles to extend above the stacked storage to provide adequate lighting for safety. So The zoning board can't act on those variances until you complete SECRA, obviously, because you're the lead agency. They have to wait for you to complete the SECRA process. So they're sort of poised and ready to make their decision, and are waiting for the conclusion of the SECRA process. So we are anxious to conclude that. But again, if you have any questions on any of our submissions, we're happy to walk through them in as much detail as you'd like. Thank you.
So as the applicant counsel has indicated, Part 2 AAF was developed, as was a narrative which expanded upon those elements that the planning board engineer and myself felt potentially or may be moderate to large impacts. The first question for this board really is that you received that on, I believe, Monday morning, this past Monday morning. And so the first question is, have you had enough time to review the document sufficiently?
Yes, I would.
It's the EAF, right?
Yes.
Yes, the EAF.
Everybody's good? Okay. Hugo?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I believe the consensus is that, yes, you have had enough time. The second question is, based upon what was submitted to you, do you have any suggestions, modifications, or outright changes to the Part 2 EAF document that you wish to discuss or change this evening? You can go over each one. You can indicate that, for example, number 1A, you have moderate to large, we don't agree, and we would work out an amended Part 2 AF. Or you may wish to add something and say, listen, on Part 1B, you say it's a minor impact, we feel that's major. So is there any changes within the document that you feel you would like to discuss this evening?
I don't want to make any changes. There are 20 points that have been checked off.
That's correct.
Heavy emphasis on the word may, and so I think it would make sense for folks to get together and have a discussion about those topics, but I did not see any that I needed to change.
What about you?
No, I agree.
Yeah, agreed.
I disagree with, I believe it's 9 or 15 with the sound. I would like that to be changed to minor impact.
Could you just read that off, please, Giancarlo?
Let me see where it is. We only have one copy of this. So
Yeah, I know, we got to share.
9. If my vision can see here. Is this visible? No, that's the visible part. 15, we have base sound noise level established by local regulation. I don't believe it's going to be over a regulated noise in that area. So I would like to change that to a minor impact or no impact. And the visual, like we were talking about.
Well, that's a different.
It's in here. The visual part is in here, correct?
Now, let's, if we can focus on noise first.
Okay.
Okay, so the applicant provided an analysis of the noise on a facility that they own, I believe in Oregon.
Yes.
And an employee of, or someone who was representing the applicant, did some type of study and analysis, walking away from the site and taking different decibel readings from some type of device, and they came up with what would be very moderate noise during the operation. So based upon their material information, it would seem that the noise would be not in excess of the general area. However, this board needs to determine if that study is considered by you folks to be a valid study, and that you agree with the findings in order to change it to minor impact.
Was that study ever submitted to us? Was the study said there?
Yes, that was submitted.
It was, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. You were at this.
If we could, if I can suggest, can we?
Hold on. Sorry.
No, I'd like to finish, and then you can do it. Please? Thank you. Okay.
So the 550 HC, that's the noise decibel right there?
That's what the readings are. I think, I'm going by memory now, so forgive me, but somewhere in the 50s, right, which is a very moderate amount of noise, quite frankly.
And what
It's
is the
certainly-
town regulation?
Generally, you look, the town doesn't have an actual discrete number. It looks at a kind of a nuisance factor per se, but a general rule of thumb is somewhere around 65 decibels is considered something that becomes somewhat of a noise.
Oh, I see here, 63 dB decibels. The reading was 55 in this town here in Salem, Oregon. Rich, you had went to the site in Millwood, correct?
I went to the site in Millwood, and I think I made more noise than they did. In fact, I was there today for a little over an hour just watching what was going on. And it was very quiet. I didn't even see any people walk around. There's a tractor trailer there, an oil truck delivering. It's an interesting site anyway because the back of it is one side of a residential road. In front of it, I'll call it, there's a nursery and a series of like condos or apartments. You wouldn't even know they were there. And over the years, I used to buy a lot of material out of Millwood Lumber, and I see they're closed now. And all the time I was going there, I saw all these things back there. I had no idea what was going on. So it was very quiet.
Okay. Well, that's important. So based upon the discussion and what the applicant has provided, do you want to change that setting, or that heading, should say, from potentially moderate to large to a minor impact?
I would.
I agree with you.
Gene,
Yes.
you agree?
Good, good.
Good.
All agreed.
Oh, good? Okay, so I'm hearing the consensus is yes. The
Yes.
second, is there any other ones you wish to change? I think, Giancarlo, you're talking about a visual, so,
It's tied into the test. I agree that it is a moderate impact on the visual setting in the town, but I don't believe we need to do any further testing. A visual balloon test.
okay. All right, so then basically, if I'm hearing you correctly, that is the one item you wish to change with respect to the noise, correct? The rest of the document you want to keep?
Correct, is so far. And I would ask questions about the body shop. Are you asking to do anything above and beyond you would ask a body shop opening up in town as far as the pollutants go and the air quality coming from the site?
No.
So then I would be okay with that.
No. Okay, so then the next step for you, and so we're going to get to you in just a second, okay? The next step would be for you to accept the Part 2AF as amended, okay? And you would need, please, to do a motion and a second and a roll call vote.
Well, but before we do that, anybody else have anything else? Or we're good with the rest? Okay.
No, actually, I do have one more question. It's about the town, the traffic. They're going to be doing a,
Well,
that's in here. That's the
The
moderate
traffic.
impact of traffic in our town. That's going to be done, there's going to be a DOT study on that, correct?
The DOT is perhaps going to do some type of studies in terms, there's already an existing curb cut out there. So it's possible DOT may or may not do additional studies. The applicant has done some studies. They've referenced some prior studies because, as you know, there's been several prior projects on that site. You know, and so they have done some studies. I think what John and I were looking to find out is basically some more detail in terms of how many tractor trailers are coming in, the lengths, the turning radius and geometry, is the road going to be able to address those types of things like that.
Okay, before we close this, I would like to hear from them before we close this section
Before you-
of the meeting.
before you
So
close.
Jamie and the lawyer, Jennifer.
Do you guys like to speak? Sure.
You guys don't leave a lot of room through here. Jamie LaJudas from Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. As part of the DOT review for the entrance, there is an existing curb cut there, correct, but we do have to do a new highway work permit because we do have improvements that will be there. So there's going to be a full DOT review that they're going to look at all the geometry, give us specific, curb radiuses and dimensions that we have to abide by. We did provide a vehicle maneuvering plan that shows the vehicles that would be going in and out of the site adequately accessing and exiting the site, as far as that's concerned. As far as the traffic portion of this, we did provide a traffic analysis report that does reference the two previous projects and goes through, in somewhat detail, basically that there is a lot of traffic with the mining operation, obviously. A lot of traffic with the bus garage that was before, not before the planning board, but the mining that was reviewed and approved. And then what's actually proposed with Morrow is literally only like 1 to 2 tractor trailers an hour, maybe. And that's if they have a crane delivery that day. And if they don't, there will be no tractor trailers. So the metric that we're looking at as far as what is a large impact or a moderate impact, we feel is absolutely not an impact, because it's not a large impact at all.
So if 20 tractor trailers pulled onto this site in one day, is that a moderate impact on our town's traffic down there? That's the question I'd like to ask the board.
I mean, in our opinion.
What would be the max number of tractor trailers coming in there, and would they be all at one time? No, they'd be
No, they
staggered,
can't.
correct?
Correct, they'd be
So at rush
staggered.
hour, you might have 4 or 5.
At rush hour, you'd have
In
two.
the morning and the afternoon, 2.
In the morning rush hour, in the afternoon rush hour, you'd have 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, during that hour. There's a half an hour difference where you have to load up the truck and they have to be able to leave. You can't just one right after the other go.
You just mentioned the possibility of 1 an hour, but you didn't specify how many hours that could possibly go on for.
True. So we did look at, which is not included in here, we looked at the peak trips within an hour as part of the study. In general, if we were looking at the maximum truck trips for a crane delivery, could vary depending on the height of the crane between 10 and 14 trucks.
Okay.
So that's over a couple days.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You spread it
Right.
over a couple of days?
Right. Because they only have 5 trailers to be able to do this back and forth. And if a trailer goes down to, say, a construction site, say in New York City, there's obviously travel time down there. They've got to be able to unload the truck. They can't just leave the truck and go back, because there is zero room to be able to leave a tractor trailer in New York City anywhere. And then they bring it back. So there's a lot of time in between that you'd have to load, unload, and then assemble the crane down there as well, and then disassemble and then bring it back.
So my next question then would be for Joe. What's our liability if we change this to a minor impact to the town?
It
Is
is
there?
just-
Well, there's no, as long as your decision is reasonable based on the evidence
supplied.
in the record, you have that discretion, and you would be entitled to that discretion. So as has been indicated, if you feel you've got enough information to make that call, it's certainly within your discretion to do it, and I think you'd be protected.
So just for background on what has been approved in the past, for Kent Materials, they were estimating 120 to 150 trips of dump trucks or tractor trailers per day. And for the garage, 90 buses per hour. So just to put it in perspective of what we're talking about here, of what was previously
I don't know if it's
approved.
90 buses per hour, because,
Well, school starts at a certain
well, I'm
time.
just saying, yeah, there's only a certain amount of buses we have.
Well, it's saying, I mean,
But
it says
at
here,
peak, I think you probably.
entry peak hour,
Yeah.
90 buses in an hour and 15.
So
So
I'm sorry about
just for
Jackie.
comparison purposes.
I think some of the information that Jackie just provided, so for example, there's going to be some improvements made to Route 52, I suspect. I'm not sure what they are yet, but that would be certainly beneficial if there's a turning lane proposed or some widening, or whatever the case might be. The length of the particular tractor trailers, the fact that there are only 5, these are all the kinds of things that exactly could have been rolled into a response in a Part 3 AF that would then take this, if the board feels comfortable, and take it, because it's in writing, to go from a moderate to major, potentially, to a minor impact. But when John and I are reviewing these things, if we don't have that information, basically doesn't help us much to go other than a moderate to major impact. So by keeping it at moderate to major, it's not doing anything other than saying, maybe we just need more information on this, maybe we need some more additional data to support the contention that it is not a moderate to major impact. So just to be clear on that. And some of the information that Jamie just provided is exactly like that. Okay?
And also, as the applicant's counsel mentioned, even if you leave it as potentially moderate to major, if they provide enough information for you to find nevertheless that it's been mitigated by design, or that it doesn't in fact have that that substantial negative impact, you can still determine that a neg deck is appropriate if all other things fall into line. in your view?
Did you want to say something?
Go to the microphone.
All right. Let's try to keep it going.
Thank you, yes. Now, I think I heard a possible request for more information with respect to traffic. If there are any requests for more information, I don't think there needs to be, because based on what we've submitted and based on what we're talking about tonight and what we've talked about at several past meetings, I think you have all the information you need to issue a neg deck, frankly. But if there is requests for more information, I just want to make sure that we are very specific and very clear about what that information is that you need. Because frankly, we feel that we've provided it all. So I just want to make sure that that request is very clear if there is a request.
Jennifer, is there another section in this that you disagree with that's moderate impact that we could discuss?
There's one that may actually be a typo, I'm not sure, the lighting. So if you look at question 15, and it's the last sub-question in that item, it's actually located on page 9 of 10. And moderate to large impact is checked off for the proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions. So we've submitted a photometric plan that shows that there's going to be no light spillage off of the property. Also, all of the light fixtures are dark sky compliant, shielded, cut off. They're the type of fixtures that are designed to not create the upward sky glow. So we were confused about that particular
Which line was that?
classification. It's line E,
Line
15E on page 9 of 10.
E. Oh, yeah, she got it as
So
moderate.
because the applicant is requesting some variances for lighting that is 35 feet high, and the fact that it's proximal to 84 in one direction, 52 in both directions, I don't know if you've ever gone past any sort of sports facilities that are lit up at night, and you see the lights that are coming down on the fields and what have you. That's kind of the night glow. It's not necessarily that there's light pollution coming off the sides of the property onto adjoining properties. It's more of something that's a haze that's coming off the property as you're driving. So we would just need some more information, and I know that they're going to do night sky and what have you, but 35 feet, that is height. The variance may or may not be impactful in terms of something like that. And we're just looking for more information on that. Right, and the zoning board is not the secret agency. You are. So, you're the one that needs to take a look at whether or not there's going to be an impact from that or not. So that's all. And then, basically, because it's so proximal to traffic lanes going back and forth, and will there be a distraction from the night glow? It's just something to take a look at.
The light
That's
does
all.
reflect off the pavement up into the sky as well.
Yeah. So that's that. I don't know if we're going to debate every single one. or
Right,
not.
no, I just wanted to make sure.
Just to further that a little bit, so the lighting that we did provide is, it is on dimmers and is programmable and on motion sensors. So it would turn on at dusk, be on that system so that when someone or everyone leaves from the site, the motion sensors would then be on, the dimmers would be on, so that it would dim down to, say, 50% of whatever the lumens are. I don't have them off the top of my head to tell you exactly what they are, but say 50% of them. A person or car, deer, whatever, walks into the facility, jumps over the chain link fence, the motion sensors turn on, and the lumens go back up to 100%. After a certain amount of time, there's no motion, it goes back down, and then at dawn, they turn off. So we feel that this is a measure that is mitigation for not only the height of the lights, but the lights in general, so that they're not on 100% all the time.
And they do go off at night? Are they on a timer where they go off at night?
So
When it's
they would dim.
Only dim?
They would dim down just for security purposes, to be able to see.
So again, I think this would be ideal
Okay.
to get these elements in writing and concisely. We realize that, but there's not enough specific information for us to come to the conclusion you are. So we have detailed in the narrative the additional information that we want or are looking for pursuant to the board's recommendations. And this is exactly the kind of stuff that should be answered in writing and what would evolve into a Part 3, as Jen has said. We can stand up here and go through each one, but I would suggest to this board that you might want to get these things in writing and move this forward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I just respond?
Of course.
That information is in writing. It's on the plans that have been submitted to your board. So there is a note on the plans that talks about the lights being on motion sensors and dimmed. So again, we feel that we've submitted this information, and if you want more detail, I'm not sure what more detail is needed in order to close out this item. But as I mentioned at the top of the discussion as well, even if you keep this at a moderate to large impact, the point is you have the discretion when you determine the significance of each of these items to determine that even if it is a moderate to large impact in your opinion, it still doesn't rise to the level of a significant adverse impact that would trigger the preparation of an entire environmental impact statement. So at the end of the day, that is what we're requesting, that whether something is marked no or small impact or moderate or large, that you use the information that's been submitted to you and determine that there is still no significant adverse environmental impact that's going to result from any aspect of the project.
I'm not going to debate with council. I did do a review of this stuff, and certain elements of what they say are contained on the drawings. For example, lighting, they do talk about lighting, but there's also a phrase that says perimeter lighting, which goes around the outside, wasn't handled the same way. Now, whether that's a typo, whether I misread what they were saying, I'm not going to argue. But what I think is here is I don't think, for instance, Jamie said a crane was typically 10 to 14 trucks. That doesn't appear in the traffic study we got. It's one of the things I've asked for. So, again, I'm not going to go through this line by line. I think, and to Joe's point and to council's point, at the end of the day, what you need to determine whether there is a significant adverse impact based on this proposal. In most cases, whether it's moderate to large, that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if it's mitigated or is not seen as significant, you can't make that finding. So I think that the gist of what Bruce and I were trying to get to is when these projects get put together, there's a lot of different spots where all this information is kind of put together. What we'd like to do is put it all together in one spot so that all the issues are addressed. Jamie's comment regarding traffic, council's comment regarding lighting. If what Jamie described, motion sensor lighting, if that prevails throughout the entire site, that addresses perhaps our concerns. I don't think it's that clear in the record yet.
Okay.
And all we want to do is get the information so it's clear. And I will confess, I may be wrong, and it may be there, and it needs to be pointed out to me. That's fine. It's not the first time I've missed something. But I think from a large point, Bruce and I have kind of spent a lot of time at this, and there are still things there that we just don't see, or maybe we don't see the way they do. So having said that, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we just need additional information in certain phases.
Okay, sir, did you want to say anything? I didn't forget about you.
No, I wanted to speak about the sound, but that was taken care of.
Okay, good enough, thank you. All right, so I think that the path that we can recommend here to this board is, again, getting back to process. The process is that you have a Part 2 EAF, you have a completed and draft Part 2 EAF, and a draft narrative, which is an explanatory document as to how some of these impacts were looked at, potentially. One change has been made with respect to noise. If you feel there are some other changes that need to be made, that's great. We're going to amend the document further until you are comfortable enough to adopt the document. So is there anything additionally at this time that you wish you would like to amend?
Anything? Anything?
No. Okay, so if you would please have a motion and a second, a roll call vote to adopt the Part 2AF.
So I'd like to make a
As
motion.
as amended, please.
That's what I was going to say. I'd like to make a motion to accept the draft full environmental assessment form Part 2 as noted, except for Part 15A, which is going to be changed from moderate to large impact to small, no or small.
Second motion.
And we're going to have to do a roll call. So, Jean?
Yes.
Aye.
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 All aye.
Thank you. Next step, as has been mentioned, is really kind of a fork in the road to get to at this time under seeker. One element is to say, well, we have identified at least one or more potential moderate to major impacts, and therefore a positive declaration could be adopted by this board. That would then necessitate a process in which a scoping document would be prepared, there'd be a public hearing, a draft environmental impact statement would be prepared. Once it's adopted as complete, then there'd be a public hearing, draft would turn into a final environmental impact statement, public hearing, and at some point, a final finding statement. That's one fork. The other fork is to say, you know, we've got a lot of information already. We're not starting from scratch here at all. The applicant has provided a whole lot of stuff. And what is the value added of doing that type of process versus having a very finite, pinpoint type of review of what really the seminal issues are and have been identified? And that would be taking the Part 2 that you've just adopted and the narrative and having the applicant provide responses to that with the idea that they would be able to provide responses to this board and take what are now looking at moderate to major impacts potentially and have them be either mitigated, changed, plan revisions, whatever the case might be, or just providing more information that those would become minor impacts and hopefully a negative declaration could be adopted. That's the other path to take. Between those processes, what we would suggest is now that you've adopted the Part 2, if this board is comfortable, it would be, I think, most efficient for the consultants of the town to meet with the consultants of the applicant so that we can kind of just hammer this out rather than swapping memos back and forth, which is expensive and takes a lot of time. So it would request so that you have at least one or two planning board members present with us if you choose to do that. But that would be the next step if indeed you've adopted the Part 2. You would wish to go towards a Part 3 or an expanded document, and that would be the process to take. So we await your recommendation.
I personally think it would be good because there seems to be a lot of miscommunication with the memos, is to get together as the latter.
Regarding
A
consultants meeting.
consultants meeting with a couple of members from the planning board of defending. I don't know, but anybody else?
I'm in favor.
No, I'm in favor. Yeah.
All right, so then if I'm understanding correctly, at this juncture, you are not indicating a positive declaration, but rather wish the applicant to provide responses to the narrative that have been identified as potentially moderate to large impacts in the Part 2AF and get together with the consultants at some juncture earlier than later to try to hammer that out and go through the process as efficiently as possible. Correct?
May I suggest that in connection with that, the board authorize our office to prepare a resolution for adoption of a negative declaration in anticipation of the notion that this meeting will be fruitful in addressing your concerns. That way you'd be ready to act at the next meeting if that goes well. We can always pivot to a different resolution or action if you're not comfortable.
Well, there would be a need, though, prior to doing an adoption for a public hearing. So you'd have to schedule a public hearing and then perhaps have Joe do the draft neg deck in anticipation there wouldn't be public comments, and you would close the public hearing that night. So something to think about.
Yeah, do you want to be heard on that, Jennifer?
Your turn.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ariel, thank you very much for making that suggestion. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. Just because documents are prepared doesn't mean that you have to act on them at the next meeting, but it would be helpful, assuming that our meeting with the consultants is going to be fruitful and productive. It would be fantastic to have that document ready for your adoption at the next meeting. the public hearing, I'm not aware of any public hearing requirement in SECRA before you make your SECRA determination. So we've obviously been before your board for several months with the public able to view. Everyone is aware of the application. We've also been before the zoning board where there's been a public hearing at the zoning board. So there's been a lot of opportunity for folks to learn about the project. But again, there's no public hearing requirement in the SECRA regulations prior to a determination of significance.
Yeah, I'll do this. I don't usually agree with council, but in this case, I will agree with council. There is no provisions in either seeker or your town code to conduct a public hearing if you are contemplating a negative declaration. The next time there will be a public hearing is when you contemplate site plan approval and approval for the erosion and sediment control permit. There are public requirements there, public hearing requirements there, but you can't get there till we close seeker. So what I would suggest is I take no exception to what Mr. Ariola has suggested, and I'd be more than happy to attend a meeting, as long as it's not tomorrow.
Or later tonight. Board to consider public hearing under seeker is a discretionary hearing in terms of where you need to be. I would say that certainly consider that. This is a project that is very visible. There is a lot of neighbors, et cetera. It's something to think about, all right? But it is not a requirement, but it is certainly a discretionary option for this board to have. And as I indicated earlier, you could schedule a public hearing as something concurrent, that if there's not a lot of public opposition or public participation, we're going to be changing the plans and moving forward, then you would be able to close the public hearing and at the same meeting adopt a negative declaration. No time lost. So something to think about.
Okay. So in reference to that, we just have to give a council permission to draw it up, or he just goes ahead?
Yeah, yes.
Actually, going to have Jen start working here. Basically, a couple of things. Number one, what we'd like you to do is authorize the town consultants and the applicant consultants to meet, as well as perhaps 2 planning board members of your choice, at some convenient time to go over the Part 2 EAF and provide some consensus to some of the information. Okay, so that's the first action to take, is to allow that to happen.
All right, so we might as well do that right now then.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion so that we will allow the consultants, council, and a few of the planning board members to meet with the applicant to go over the Part 2 EAF with that one.
Right, and just as John said, as long as it's not tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay,
as long as it's not tomorrow, but it will be, we will determine that soon, trying sooner is better for everybody.
Sure, well, maybe have Vera coordinate that through some sort of, scheduling type of thing, yeah, okay?
Whatever works for
Okay,
everybody, we'll
good.
make it work.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 2 is to, question?
Oh, sorry,
Just make sure that authorization extends to the
I
president.
did say council.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, you got it. I lost my train of thought. Number 2 is to authorize council to prepare a draft negative declaration for the planning board meeting in November.
I want to make a motion that council for the planning board prepare a draft resolution for negative declaration for November.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Lastly is the hard one, whether or not you wish to have a public hearing at the meeting in November to have this openly discussed.
I'd like to push
I
it back,
just
right?
would, what's everybody's view on that? Because we will be getting a public hearing later on when the site plans come out, right?
Yes, you will have to have a public hearing for the site plan and the steep slope erosion sediment control permit when and if that is tendered.
Anybody have any thoughts?
I just think it's not adding another layer that's not necessary.
Yeah, I don't see a reason, personally, I don't see a reason for it at this stage, but we will be having a public hearing. But I'm not speaking for everybody on the board. So,
I see no need for a public hearing at this point.
Good.
Agreed.
Great. Okay, so then basically we'll work with Vera to set up a meeting with the consultants, and hopefully we'll get to consensus and be able to go through that negative declaration first meeting in November.
okay.
Guys have any questions?
I do have a question because unfortunately I wasn't here last week, but I only got to see your 3D rendering for, I was actually quite impressed with it, so, and, sorry? We were too. Yeah,
No?
but
I don't see it.
we asked a question,
Go ahead,
a
Jim.
board member last month asked a question about how much a balloon test or crane test would actually cost, and you were to get back to us. I don't remember seeing anything.
That, I do apologize, that we did not prepare.
I was just
Do you
curious,
know,
that was because we asked the
Transporting a
question.
crane, how much that would cost?
Bring a crane up there, probably maybe $3,000 for the day, for the crane, and the operator, maybe $5,000 for the crane. I thought that.
No, we just asked the question last time to see how much, because I don't know, so I was asking the question.
Between $3,000 and $5,000, and then whatever the cost would be.
But as I was saying, for me, these look very good.
Well, we had extra, they asked for extra.
But I think there might be a couple of, if you could, I don't know if you could take photographs from different, just photographs to add in with these, because these are good from
So
different
which-
vantage points.
So which vantage points are we looking at?
Because I think we were originally going to kind of look at something and pick vantage points, but we never actually did that because you were coming ahead and you were going to show us what this would look like. And
Right.
as I said, it looks really good. But now just, if we can actually just fine tune it and just say, we want this at points, and you should be able to get it, right?
Yes, so
Because I
generally
think that's
from
what we
street.
discussed the last time,
Ye-
when we were discussing,
Generally-
instead
generally,
of
yes.
doing the balloon test.
Okay.
This is the one I asked for, you have in your hand?
Yes.
Okay, pass it out.
Almost like a basketball team up there. So basically, what the narrative as part of the Part 2 says about visual is there's two things. First of all, there is an addenda to the environmental assessment form called the Visual Assessment Addenda. It's a 2-page addenda. That's something that's being requested. It gives you, I think, Giancarlo, what you're looking for in terms of proximity to different things relative to the project and other information. The second thing is that what was being discussed is, in addition to what's been done, what other vantage points would this board want to look at? And generally what you're considering and what is described, at least in the code, is ridge lines, trails, parklands, areas of special or scenic interest, etc. So what I think we can accomplish at this consultants meeting is we have this document called the Natural Resource Inventory that has a lot of information on it already that is there to visualize, and then we could probably come up with perhaps another 4 or 5 points that has, in addition, already been done. What do you got?
It's a big document.
Yeah, we're gonna have to read that. But anyway, but in there is a lot of different maps, topographic maps, historical maps, et cetera, that would probably provide tremendous aid in saying, listen, these are the 3 or 4 points more that we would like to see so that we ensure we've kind of considered everything in terms of the visual. And that's, I think, what we could accomplish at the consultants meeting.
Just put it on the agenda for that consultants meeting.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
after
what
the
it is,
workshop, you did ask for another point, thank you, another point from Johnson's Landscaping. So we took the similar views and processes that we prepared with this, and then basically pulled through Street View and was able to show the framing of the massing of where the cranes potentially would be, the buildings, and the outside storage. So I will show you that now. So there are 2 different driveways for Johnson's Landscaping. The framing that you see here
Yeah.
is that's basically the outside storage. You can see the crane, the furthest cranes, and then there's a central crane, and then the building. So it is behind all the vegetation that you would see.
It doesn't stick above the ridge line.
No.
Yeah.
that the same?
No, this is a little different,
There it is, right there.
yeah.
I have a question for you. This is about, you don't have to stand up there.
Not as good as that.
Well, there's two different driveways.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I just have to state your name, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Your name?
Ron Yakin, representing Morrow Equipment.
Thank you. So, in the storage pile, we're gonna go from 8 feet to 30 feet. My main concern with this was, is there a man rigging these sections, or is it an electrified claw that works in the end of the crane?
There's a rigger doing
There
that.
is a rigger climbing 30 feet.
Right.
That's gonna be, now, is it possible for that man, the evacuation problem, if the man was to fall down through those sections stacked that high? What does he stand on? Because that could be slick.
Well, first off, he's tied off, so he
Okay.
can't fall down, yeah.
What is he tied off to, the section below
This,
him?
the section above him. He climbs up with two hooks and works his way up, so he's always tied off, so he can't fall.
Okay.
But, while I'm here, I'd just like to say one thing. I thank the board for all their time they're putting into this. And I was looking today of, this is a very costly process for us to do this. And to date, we have spent over $100,000 between legal fees, consulting fees, town consultants. So I would just ask you to do whatever we can to, I'm really pleased that the consultants now can speak to each other. We don't have to go through this month delay and trade memos back and forth, and I don't have enough information, I don't understand the question. So I think we're at a good spot. And the other thing I was thinking about is my 3-year-old granddaughter loves the crane. She always asks me, can we go down and see the crane? So we're always looking at this crane as a negative, but I would not be surprised if some of the students in the school see the crane and want to be engineers. This is really, my grandkids, they love reading, I've read to them books on construction equipment and so forth. So it could be very good for the school also. Maybe they take a class trip, go see the crane work. So I think we have to just open our eyes a little bit and say, what good is the crane also? Thank you.
I think a lot of people here feel the same way.
Okay, so I thank the board. I think we have our direction that we need. We'll work with Vera to set up the meeting with the applicants, consultants, and we'll keep you apprised. We'll see them at the next meeting. Okay?
something on the subject, okay?
It's up.
So this is not a public,
Who is
Can he say?
Joe,
Yeah.
it's not a
Sure.
public hearing, but if the board wishes, you
I mean,
can.
yeah, he can be here, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you got that stuff? Hi, could you? Hi. Could you please state your name for the record?
Sean Boyd, Town of Kent Councilman. Thank you, board. You guys do a great job, and you're not really rewarded the way you should be. You guys could be home watching a Yankee game or something, right? So I'd just like to say something about this project. So this property is zoned, is it commercial, light industrial? Yes. Right. So when it was done, when it was zoned, it was known that we were going to have noise issues, light issues, right? That's the whole purpose of it. It's like this in this part of the town. It's not in a residential neighborhood. It's not next to a park or someplace like that. It's meant to be used for commercial purposes. So, we'll never get like a pillow factory that's going to be super quiet in there, or, owls that are going to work in the dark. It's going to be industrial, and we desperately need the tax, revenue from this. It's a great spot for something like this. And, clearly somebody didn't tell them how much they're going to pay in school taxes, right? So we need this kind of stuff. And so I just would really like you guys to, have that idea that, don't let all the noise and the lighting and that kind of stuff and the traffic being the other thing. When it was zoned as commercial, particularly right off of 84, there was the idea that we knew that was going to happen, that was going to be there. And there are some improvements that are coming, 252 into Ludingtonville Road. Can't tell you exactly what they are now, but they are coming. Thank you.
Anything else, you folks?
No.
Okay, thank you, and we will continue to work on this together, and we will see everybody back here in November on this one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you.
Okay, next on my list is sorry? I'm sorry.
Council's
Yeah.
here.
Oh, who?
Ryder. Okay.
Sorry. Next on the list is going to be Ryder property.
Good evening. My name is Joel Greenberg from Architectural Visions, and I just would like to thank the board. I believe my associate was there at the work session, and it was mentioned that the possibility of going to the zoning board and getting that issue resolved one way or the other, and, you know, keep on any...
Carry on, sorry. Go ahead. Carry.
And to keep the planning board issues open if there are any further issues, but obviously we can't go too much further until we have, we're about to apply. And I sent Vera a letter to the board saying that we agree that we should also go to the zoning board and, you know, work with the planning board on any other issues other than the variances. So we will be applying to the zoning board.
I think, as we discussed at the workshop, Bruce and I do have a couple memos. I have a memo from back a ways, and Bruce has a more recent memo, actually dated October 10th. And even though they are going to the ZBA, that's the first step. There are still some issues that we need to resolve. We still need to get, I believe Mr. Greenberg has made application to the health department. We need a response back from them. There are some other issues that we still need. We still need to close out an existing permit and a few other things, but if they could take a look at our memos and address the items in those memos while they're going through the ZBA process, when they come back to us, if most of those items are resolved, we should be able to move this ahead, providing the ZBA cooperates.
We have absolutely no problem with that. I haven't received the October 10th memo yet. Well, thank you very much.
I basically have had the same memo for a while. I'd actually had a discussion with the applicant's environmental consultant, and the applicant wishes to, in addition to some of the other aspects of the project, wants to restore an area of the wetland buffer and basically remove some invasive species there and plant some native species, which, when speaking with this particular person, they developed kind of a plan per se, or a narrative, but not a plan. I just asked him to review the code because it's possible that if he does some minor changes to his plan, he may actually be able to go in under a maintenance as of right action and not need a wetland permit to do the work he's requiring. Simply to remove some invasive species if he's not going to be creating a lot of bare earth. And, you know, there's kind of a fine definition line of what's maintenance and not. And I asked him to review the code, and if he can kind of tailor the plans to that, he wouldn't need a wetland permit. And I have yet to hear back from him on that. I'm hoping I will, and that way we can put that to bed. If not, then the simple thing is to go ahead with a wetland permit and proceed accordingly with the rest of the application. So that's where we are right now with that. Any questions?
Okay. Anybody?
No
Any
questions.
No questions.
And I would just mention that in accordance with what council had to say, I think at our workshop meeting, we did discuss the idea that these could advance on parallel tracks at the ZBA and the planning board, as long as the applicant understood that, you know, the ZBA would have to grant the relief in order, so it's to a certain extent at their risk, and they have done that, so you know, you can go forward with this review. was that in the letter? I didn't see the letter you were discussing, but I think we
Yes, I emailed it to
okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll confirm that I have it, and if not, I'll get it and make sure it gets.
We will agree with the consultants and the attorney that this should go parallel, because there's obviously, there's a few items with regard to the planning board's purview that should be addressed. Bruce, if I can have your memo, and...
Sure. I'll make sure you get it.
Yeah, just, if you could just email it like this, I can get the whole package together. I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any more that you...
What's that?
Is there any more that...
I don't think so, unless you think so. Good? Okay. All right, thank you. It's good to see
Okay.
everybody.
Good to see you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, next on my list, as I said, is AJ First Realty.
Again, Joel Greenberg from Architectural Visions. Again, my associate was there at the work session last week discussing this particular project. As you might recall, there's a fairly level section where there's a parking lot and a business there, and then in the back, up to the next street, there is a rather steep slope, which most of the trees were taken down. But it's my understanding, and I had a conversation with Bruce Barber, that the preference would be to basically clear out all the weeds and the chips and everything, and to put some kind of wildflower seeding on the slope, and then let that grow. And that also, with regard to that little drainage, is just to leave, as I said, well enough alone. It's working. It's not flooding the parking lot, and eventually it does come out to the catch basins on Route 52. So we would like to proceed with that. If we could set up a public hearing so we can get this thing moving, we'd appreciate that.
Okay.
This application where someone got a little bit of an early start doing some clearing in the back of the property, the building inspector issued either a notice of violation and/or a stop work order. We were called to look at the site, and the applicant developed a preliminary restoration plan, and as Joel is indicating, it's a kind of a steep slope in the back of the property. The original plan had a lot of plants or trees on it that actually would not be viable, nor would they really be something that might hold the soil back fairly well in a situation like this. So the suggestion was made to first of all remove the existing weeds and then just kind of level it out, because there's some eroded rills and things like that in the hillside. And then to take a native seed mix and broadcast that on the soil and either cover it with mulch other than wood chips, mostly hay, or the better plan would be to use like a tackifier and a hydroseed product and just have it go there, stays in place, it'll grow and it'll be fine. That takes care of it very inexpensively. It provides a surface that will stay in place, that will grow and only need to be managed a couple times a year. And if the applicant wishes that later on to establish some trees and things in the back there, they're certainly welcome to do so. But the goal is to get the site stable, and this is the the fastest and least expensive way to do it, at least in my opinion. Okay?
And they had, as part of their plan, a kind of a detailed, they were going to enhance the drainage ditch. Really, it just needs to be cleaned, probably needs to be slightly reshaped, and then at the one end, they had proposed to install a catch basin and connect out to the main place so it didn't go stagnant, so the water would continue to flow. I think that aspect of it was to be retained, the outlet piping, but the rest of it, they didn't need to get fancy with it. It could be and just enhance the way it is without doing too much disturbance. The only thing I will note is that the area of disturbance is greater than 5,000 square feet, so they do need an erosion control permit. They kind of made application, but we need some additional details. We need erosion control measures and a few other things, and we need some details on what they're proposing, for that drainage outfall. So there's a little work that needs to be done, but we just, before you conduct a public hearing, we do need some additional information.
Okay, so there's nothing to be done today?
Nothing to be done tonight, sir.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much, and we'll follow through on the consultant's requests, and hopefully at the next meeting, we can schedule a public hearing. Thank you very much.
Next is Cohen. Cohen, am I pronouncing that right? Oh, look at that, trifecta.
Let's hope the Yankees can do the same.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Again, at the work session, this project was discussed. Basically, what we want to do there is, many years ago, and I thank Bill Walters for getting me all the information and the previous history of this particular piece of property. Basically, there are two one-family houses very close to Peekskill Hollow Road, and at a certain point, and I don't know what the year was, maybe you can refresh my memory, but at that particular point, the zoning board did basically say that the two residences on that piece of property could remain, and that's what we're proposing, basically. We're also proposing, it's a huge, huge lot, over 20 acres, and what we'd like to do is to subdivide it so that the two houses in question, very close to Peekskill Hollow Road, will be on the one lot, and then the Cohen's residence in the back would then be on the second lot. So you'd have the two houses that were approved by the zoning board on lot one, and then their residence and the remaining lot, which is behind, which is huge, would be behind that. Obviously, because of the situation with the way the road frontage is, there's not enough road frontages for two lots. So what we decided to do was to give the two houses that were approved by the zoning board and give them the proper frontage that they need. And the balance then would be the driveway that goes up to the Cohen's residence. So therefore, what we'd have to do is to go to the zoning board and see if they will agree to that lot line adjustment and the reduction in the frontage for the lot number 2. So that we'd like to do that at this time. If we get the variance or they make some other changes, obviously we might have to change how the lot lines are adjusted, but what we're proposing now is just what we showed you at the work session. And again, we'd like to go to the zoning board and find out what their opinion is. And if we, hopefully we'll get the variances and be able to come back to this board. Thank you very much.
Mr. Greenberg gave you a rather efficient summary. I'm not going to belabor the point, but Bruce and I have not prepared memos yet. There's a bunch of questions. We considered the application incomplete, and the basic thing is there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can entertain unless and until they resolve the ZBA matters. So it would be our recommendation that Mr. Greenberg sit down with Bill Walters and make sure the application to the ZBA is properly constituted and addresses all that it needs to address. And should they prevail in that, then they can come back and we can work through the subdivision process.
Okay, sounds good.
There's nothing to see, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know the score yet, but hopefully we're okay. I agree with the consultants. Obviously, we're going to go to the zoning board, and then we'll meet with the consultants to address all their issues. Hopefully, we'll be successful at the zoning board. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Next is Alpro Property. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Bill. Jumping the gun on you.
Bill Walters, Building Inspector. Joe, just want a reminder, the deadline for the ZBA is October 28th. Don't look for me this week. I'm not going to be in the office. So after the 21st, if you're looking for me, you can come in. But you can fill the application now, get it into Kathy so it's in on time. All right? The deadline's the 28th for the November meeting.
Okay. Next is Alpro Property.
This is the second opportunity to discuss this with the board. This is an application to reconstruct an existing single-family home. They are going to be tearing down the existing structure there and actually constructing a new foundation. The architect has indicated, or the engineer, that the existing foundation has been water damaged and therefore is unsuitable to be constructed upon, and therefore they're putting in a new foundation. They're also going to be putting a realignment of the driveway, and they're going to put in a new septic system. They did receive Board of Health approval for a septic system repair. This application is pretty much complete. There's a couple of odds and ends left to do, a few T's to cross, but for the most part, from my review, and I believe John's review also, it's reasonably complete. The one thing, though, in speaking with Mr. Walters, is that the change, this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. They are putting the house back at the same footprint, but they are increasing the height of the structure above what had been originally there. They're actually having a loft or a half-story, second half-story. As a result, the height is being increased from what's originally there, and therefore a variance will be needed. So at this time, we would suggest two things, similar to what we did earlier in the evening. Number one is refer the application to Mr. Walters for his review and send to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And secondly, to schedule this for the public hearing for the meeting in November. If they're successful in coming back from the Zoning Board, they can have the public hearing at that time. And if not, the board can certainly agenda it and move forward when it's appropriate.
So we can do the,
So number one is to direct the applicant to meet with Mr. Walters and go through the process of applying for Zoning Board of Appeals for the change in height.
that's just a statement more than a motion?
Mhm.
Okay. Go
Yep.
ahead.
And number two would be to schedule this for the November public hearing.
Okay, so we want to give permission to the applicant to talk to Mr. Walters.
To schedule the application to appear before the Zoning Board of
Oh,
Appeals.
yes, to make an application to the zoning board of appeals. And then I'd like to make a motion to authorize the public hearing for the property on tax map number 19.12-1-14 for November 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're the architects.
Sure.
If we reduce that height, would we not need a variance?
So Mr. Bill?
So let me ask the question, is there going to be any increase in non-conformity? No, I don't know.
Getting your 10,000 steps in.
Not even, hey, the Mets already won, Bill, you know.
We're hoping for a Subway Series. I guess the question we have for the architect, is there going to be, the reason he had to go to the ZBA is because there's an increase in nonconformity. It's a non-conforming build, so if it's going to be if it's going to stay the same, then you wouldn't need to go to the ZBA. But if you're going to do an increase, then you would need a variance in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
So we're not increasing the foundation at all. We're going to put it exactly what it was. And there are unfortunately no floor plans of the original.
It's a big mystery for all.
Yes, yes. So it's not a large property. We're not, I don't know, so I can't really say at this point if we're really adding more nonconformity. I mean, we're not extending to the.
But you're going up. If you're going up, that would be an increase.
Right, but if we get rid of that and we
Then-
don't go up.
Then I think it's pretty simple. It's not an increase then.
Okay, so yeah, that's the question. If we don't add that little loft space.
You hold the magic pen.
Okay, okay.
All right, so if you're going to do, John, so if you're going to do that, and if you just submit amended plans, you would be on the agenda for the public hearing, but you would not need to go to the zoning board because you certainly have Mr. Walters look at it, make sure you're all compliant, and we'll move that forward. So that's entirely up to you and your client.
Okay.
And I just wanted to amplify what Bruce has said. I did do a review memo. Most of my issues have been satisfactorily resolved. And it would be my recommendation, provided there are no substantive issues raised at a public hearing, if held, the remaining project could be moved to an administrative track. It has advanced that far. And actually, we have some bond recommendations. So to Bruce's point, if they don't have to go to the ZBA and you conduct a public hearing, we could move this ahead at the next meeting, providing everything else was on the up and up.
Good.
Anything else?
Great, thank you.
Everybody good? Okay, next on the list is Bliss Day Spa.
Bliss Day Spa is a sign application, 531 Route 52. It's for suite number 5. Reviewed the application with Mr. Walters. The applicant did submit a combined application as well as documents showing the proposed sign. Proposed sign, there'll be a wall-mounted sign that is 1 foot by 5 foot, and a road sign measuring 12 inches high by 44.7 inches wide. They provided photographs as well, and basically a letter from the building inspector indicates that this, based upon review, is a de minimis application, basically putting a sign where one used to be with no material changes. So the recommendation for this board is to grant de minimis status and authorize the building inspector to issue a building permit for the sign.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
We're doing it again?
Yeah, he likes the center of attention. Though.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, I'm going to get his autograph later.
Sorry about
So basically, this is a sign application. Mr. Walters and I discussed it. It's basically replacing signs that are in existence with the same signs, different store. There'll be a wall sign and a store sign at the front of the property. Mr. Walters issued a de minimis letter indicating that it meets the code requirements to be addressed as a de minimis application. I agree, and so at this time I recommend the board authorize Mr. Walters to grant a building permit for the sign.
Is that just a simple motion?
Simple motion, yep.
Who would like to make the motion to grant de minimis application to site at lot number 33, period 46-1-6?
Second.
Do you want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. I bet you we're going to be doing Blue Heron next, am I right? Blue Heron is also a sign application, 47 Route 311. It's a restaurant, and basically they are provided a combined application. The wall sign is 3 feet by 7 feet, and they provided a plan and photographs as required showing the sign dimensions and locations. We have a letter from the building inspector that based upon his review, this is a de minimis application of the town code. In reviewing it, I also agree with the finding and recommend that the planning board authorize the building inspector to issue a building permit for this sign. Motion and a second.
Okay, who would like to make the motion to move?
I would, because I messed up the last one.
Oh, okay. Lot number 22, period 82-1-58 for a sign, Blue Herring.
I'm making that
You
one.
making that motion?
Yeah.
Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, let's just,
Living.
I have a different one than you.
That's the official one that you're in.
Huh? This one is?
Yeah, but can we jump ahead to Livingston?
Yeah, that's next on my list.
Okay.
So we'll do Livingston.
That's what I've got.
I'm going to save you, so. A representative of the applicant is here, but you should have in front of you a resolution. What this is, it's a site plan approval and it's a change in use for 529 to 533 Route 52 LLC. And what they're basically doing is they're taking a previously combined suite in one of the existing buildings and breaking it back up into 2 original suites. As you may recall, we discussed it at the workshop. And basically, the uses, a nail salon and a day spa, are permitted uses in the zoning. There's not touching the exterior of the building. There's no land disturbance. You don't need any additional permits. And the site is fully developed. It's in operation. You all drive by it. And the thing here is, we just have no site plan on the record. So what has happened is the applicant did cause to have a site plan prepared. They submitted a site plan based on the aerial photograph. It provided sufficient information for Mr. Walters, Mr. Barber, and myself to do a reasonable review. And basically what happens is, based on they also submitted documentation regarding sewage flow and other things, a parking calculation. So everything is in order, and there's no net. So under your code, if you remember, you created a section 77.60D3, a site plan approval waiver. So what I have for you this evening is a resolution of the Kent Planning Board. It's identified as draft number 2. And it's a resolution of site plan approval, change in use, and site plan approval waiver. And if you will, what I will do is read the now therefore be it resolved, if there's no questions.
The only question is, I don't have that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, don't seem to have it.
And I only have 1 copy, so I won't be able to read it if I...
That one. No, go ahead, you can read it.
Okay, so the first one is, now therefore be it resolved. The Town of Kent Planning Board acknowledges that the site plan approval and change in use is a type 2 action under seeker pursuant to 617.5C9 and requires no further seeker review. And be it further resolved that the Town of Kent Planning Board finds that the action, 1, will not result in any additional traffic generation or wastewater flows or water consumption beyond the existing system's capacities, and 2, will not affect pedestrian and traffic circulation, eliminate parking, or alter the height of the exterior facade, and 3, that the lot and all existing structures comply with the minimum lot and bulk requirements for the zoning district in which it is located. And be it further resolved that the Town of Kent Planning Board, as authorized by Town Code Chapter 77, hereby waives any further requirements of a site plan review as set forth in that same chapter. And be it further resolved, the Town of Kent Planning Board accepts the site plan entitled Site Plan for 529-533 Route 52 LLC, prepared by Cronin Engineering, Professional Engineering and Consulting, dated September 24th, 2024, and authorizes that it be entered into the project record as the approved site plan for this site, effective as of the date of this approval. Finally, this resolution shall take effect immediately, and its adoption by the planning board. Upon its adoption by the planning board, the planning board further directs that this resolution be forwarded to the Town of Kent building inspector for his use and information. Bill has some actions pending that once you adopt this, that closes those actions out and he can resolve the matters. We require a motion, a second, and then a roll call vote.
Okay, so obviously I'm gonna just make a motion to accept the resolution as stated for tax map 33.48-1-6, also known as 529-533 Route 52, that we accept the site plan and we're waiving any more site plan revisions, is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's taken
Effect immediately.
Effect immediately. And let me see, that there's no excess water flow, pedestrian
Right.
walkway, or vehicles.
You're good, you can just
Good-
adopt
we're
it
good
as...
with that?
That's good.
Okay,
Second.
Who made the motion? Simon?
yes.
Tom Ferroni?
Second.
I'll
We
do a
need
roll call vote.
call,
Simon
so
Carey,
Gene.
Chairman? Oh,
Rich? Giancarlo?
Aye.
Al, aye.
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 motion carries and passes. Thank you all very much.
Thank
You're
you.
all set, sir.
Next.
Got one quick question of the board.
As fate would have it, I got a call today from somebody that wants to do the exact same thing that we just took out of here in the same building a little bit further down. What's my process? Back to Bill?
You go back to Bill, and basically, if there's no exterior changes, it's de minimis, because you now have a site plan on file, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the agenda that they were handed out tonight. This is the most current. So that is the yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Next on the agenda is Beresford. I hope I said that correctly. I'm sorry if I messed it up.
This is an old one.
Go ahead, sorry.
Good evening. Jason Snyder with Beatty and Watson, representing the applicant, David Beresford, who is also in attendance tonight. We have a vacant lot on Kent Lake, 0.673 acres in the town's R80 zoning district. It's on Kent Lake Ave. We have a proposed septic and well, which has been approved by the Health Department and the DEP. We also have individual residential stormwater permit that's required by the DEP, which was approved prior to issuance of the septic and well permit. We have over 5,000 square feet of disturbance and have prepared a basic stormwater pollution prevention plan, in addition to the stormwater that we provided for the IRSP. We have some wetland buffer, or some water course buffer intrusion, which basically, the buffer comes up and basically bisects the lot. So half the lot is in the wetland buffer. We have some floor plans and elevations. That's about it. Neighbors. Good.
So this is the first opportunity the board has to have a look at this. We met with Jason on Zoom. He submitted the application as indicated is to construct a single-family home over on Kent Lake Avenue. The home is proposed to be 2 bedrooms in size with a attached deck, water well, septic system, and a driveway. The subject is presently unimproved, and it's consisting of 0.673 acres, as Jason indicated, in R80 zoning district. I have not yet done a site inspection. John and I intend to go out there in the next week or so to have a look at the site and confirm the wetland boundaries as shown on the plan, but as mentioned, there is intrusion into the wetland buffer. It currently is shown, so there'll be a need for a wetland permit as well as a steep slope erosion septic control plan as well. The house itself is located kind of between, right now it appears on the plan, 2 kind of areas of rock outcroppings. And Jason, could you just kind of help me out and show them where the wetland buffer is relative to everything while I'm chatting here? Thanks.
So the wetland buffer is, basically the whole house is in the buffer. Basically the house is sited in between the 2 rock outcroppings.
Yeah. So typically what the board has done in the past in something like this where the entire house is in the wetland buffers, the first thing is to see if the impacts can be avoided entirely. Can the plan be modified or changed to get the improvements and disturbance out of the wetland buffer itself. If that's impractical, then the next step the board would take would be, can you minimize it? Can you change the house orientation? Can you change the location of driveways or decks or things of that nature that might also reduce the impacts of the buffer? And then the third would be to see if anything can be mitigated. In other words, is there an opportunity to, during the construction process, to do types of things that would mitigate for the loss of buffer because it will be now less than what it presently is due to house construction and other improvements. The other thing the board has done in the past is, on a few occasions, is a project like this is to deny the application because it's entirely in the wetland and the wetland buffer, and it's just impractical to move forward. So I think this particular application needs several zoning variances, but I would suspect the best thing to recommend to the board right now is A, to have John and I have a look at it, maybe Jason out there if he wishes, see if there's any opportunity to kind of massage things around and move things around a bit to reduce the impacts of the buffer, confirm the wetlands that are out there as shown on the plans, and then come back to this board with your recommendations on how to proceed. And at that point, if you feel appropriate that we should be proceeding, then the next step would be to refer them to the Zoning Board of Appeals for their variances that are required and then move the application forward. So tonight, there's really no action for the board to be taking other than to indicate that we will be going out to the site to inspect, and we will reconvene on next month and have another look at this. Okay. John? Do you think this is?
I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I did prepare a memo, but basically, from my standpoint, it was relatively, the application was incomplete. It is in the East of Hudson watershed. It does disturb greater than 5,000 square feet. It's also, as Bruce said, the wetland buffer, so there's a series of permits needed. The material, and Jason indicated again this evening, that they have Putnam County Health Department and a DEP approval, none of which was included in the application. So we'd like to see those approvals in writing, and we would like the supporting documentation that resulted in their issuance. That would help us with our evaluations. The documents that I got suggested that this is, your owner is a contract vendee, and the owner's authorization was not yet completed. So we're going to need that completed. We're going to need a full erosion sediment control. I have no issue, and I've said this before, as long they put it on a drawing, as long as it includes everything. So we'll take a look at that. We will need some documentation that the project complies with the requirements for historic or archaeological sensitive locations. We'll need an NOI, a SWIP acceptance form, and when it comes time, we'll need a public hearing, because it has been your custom and practice to hold public hearings for projects with houses or improvements in a wetland buffer. That's all I have to say. And obviously, if you didn't get Bruce's, you didn't get mine. You're welcome. So, there's nothing to do tonight.
Okay. You good?
So have the required zoning, variances been outlined?
I think it's on the memo that I second page maybe.
Okay. And there's,
yes, I think we have frontage, property size, and maybe something else. I did have a look, and obviously the ultimate person is properly built.
and there's no opportunity to go to the ZBA prior to the next meeting or your...
Yes, you can do that. Jason, the only thing we would want you to do, the request is to have the application looked at in parallel track with the planning board and the zoning board. The board has considered that to be possible with one thing, and that was earlier this evening we had this too, where the applicant would provide in writing to Vera's office that the applicant is aware that they do so at their peril. In the off chance that the zoning board would not grant the variances, we do not want the applicant to be disappointed or upset that we've expended time and money on the review in the planning process on their behalf. So as long as they're cognizant of that and provide that they're okay with that in writing, then we can do the parallel review. Okay? Okay.
All right. I will coordinate with Bruce and John for the site meeting.
And just for the record, I don't know if you heard Bruce before, that the application deadline is the 28th
28th.
for the ZBA. So if you can get it in before then, you can probably make it.
All right, sounds
And the
good.
applications are all on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next tonight is Metric Motors.
Evening, John Farrell for Metric Motors. The Russos are here, the owners of Metric Motors. The last several weeks, I submitted some documents relative to the millings. Hopefully the board has received those. If not, I can read some of the documents.
We've got some.
Did you get the documents?
We got some.
All right. First thing is a letter from, or an email from Matt Iannetta from New York City DEP. And he says there are no DEP restrictions on the use of millings in the watershed. DEC does specify acceptable uses for asphalt millings. Second letter is from Bill Walters, an email. I asked Bill to help me find in the town code where it is restricted or prohibited for the use of millings in the town of Kent. That was indicated by somebody at one of these meetings. And Bill said, I am not aware of a local code that restricts millings as standalone items. The violation that was written for a violation in chapters, whatever, for having brought in more than 100 cubic yards of any material, and we acknowledge that. That would include millings, wood chips, mulch, dirt. Generally, the board doesn't allow millings in a wetland or buffer area, which we have not placed millings in a wetland or buffer area. We've had the wetlands flagged by Ted Kozlowski, and my site plan shows the 100-foot buffer. And then there is a document from the state of New York. The question is, what is the law in New York on asphalt millings? And it says several things, and one of them is asphalt parking spaces is one of the areas, the places that can be used. And it says you can use asphalt millings for your driveway in New York. They are a popular choice for driveways because they are cost-effective and environmental friendly, and there are several benefits. We're looking to have the board approve this project. It started out as a violation rightly submitted by Bill for filling an area without a planning board approval, which Bill put that to our attention. We submitted a site plan and been here several times, and here we are. That's my story.
Okay, so at the workshop, it was discussed, this has been actually what Mr. Carell had been discussing, has been discussed several times now. Basically, I think that where the agreement had arisen is that the applicant was going to be engaging the services of a soil scientist. I'll go into the why in just a second. And indeed, Mr. Paul Janik provided a resume to the Planning Department, of which I received and reviewed. I found his credentials to be satisfactory in terms of a qualified soil scientist to do work with wetlands and soils and things of that nature. Number two is Mr. Janik provided a work plan, and basically he would be going out to do some soil exploration. In my memo for this month, just asked for two very simple things. And number one is just to clarify the locations of the testing that he wants to do so that we're not doing too much and spread out all over the place. We want to make sure we're just hitting the bullseyes with the testing. And number two is that it's done in accordance with the Army Corps of Engineers, which is what's called an atypical site situation, which is when you have fill, as Mr. Correll indicated, brought to a site. So with that in mind, if those changes are made and if he provides a map and those changes, I would ask the board to authorize the applicant to proceed with Mr. Janik's work on the site. The reason that we have Mr. Janik coming to the site is when the application was first submitted by Mr. Correll, a soils map was provided by the National Resource Conservation Service. Those are kind of the soil maps for the counties. And for this particular site, virtually the entire 2/3 middle of the site is considered licensure B soils. And licensure soils in our town code, chapter 39A, are identified as hydric soils or what are called wetland soils. And as a result, it's a possibility that the fill is overlaying wetland soils as shown on the map provided by the applicant. However, these maps, these NRCS maps, are not site-specific, and so we have had, and this board has several times in the past, engaged a soil scientist to go out and say, listen, you have this on your site based upon this map. Is the map accurate or not? And in the 2 or 3 occasions that you've had a soil scientist do that, they have come back and they have found some wetlands on the site that were soils that were here previously unidentified. So that's where we are with this, and I had been hoping that we would just be able to proceed with figuring out if the wetlands are underneath the millings, because as Jack alluded to, with wetlands, they're not considered acceptable in our town code. Under Chapter 39A, it is a regulated activity to pollute the wetlands, and millings have a substantial amount of potential pollutants in them, asphalt products, volatile organic compounds, salts, things of that nature. And the other thing is just to kind of, finish this project and say there's either wetlands there or they're not, because if there's wetlands and there's elevated groundwater, as is the case with wetlands, again, it's not recommended according to these standards that Jack's mentioned to have the millings there. So I had hoped that we were going to this evening accept Mr. Janik, if the board wishes, to have him do the work necessary based upon a couple of tweaks to his proposal to get out and get this done and get it finished and report back to the board. And if there's wetlands out there, well, then we know how to proceed. And if they're not, then there's another avenue to proceed. And that's what we're waiting to do. Okay? Chuck, did you get this? Probably did. Take that.
We've all had this discussion on millings. I'm going to not disagree with Mr. Correll. He just did not take it far enough. Millings are acceptable for certain uses. They are not prohibited per se, but they are permitted for use under some DEC guidelines that are based on a beneficial use determination. So if you look at the official website, you look at the rules and regulations. In fact, one of the DEC documents that Mr. Correll quoted actually sent you to a reference, which I did go through. But anyway, millings can be used in a highway right-of-way. They can't be used on farms for cropland. They can't be used for farms other. They can be used in limited situations in residential developments as pavement. And then lastly, under pavement, they can be used on any sites. There is a further caveat that says millings can actually be used as a parking surface, a light-duty surface, providing it's limited to between 3 and 6 inches and placed over a compacted and prepared subgrade. Couple caveats that you have to be aware. It cannot be placed anywhere near the water table. Arguably, wetland soils run the risk of going close to the water table. There is no prohibition, as DEP says, except for the fact that millings are considered under DEP guidelines an impervious surface once placed and compacted. There are limitations with impervious surfaces within certain distances of wetlands. So while I don't quibble with the ability to use millings if they had been properly brought in, placed, and handled, until we resolve the issue of the wetland, the ability to use those millings remains in question. So to follow up on what Bruce said, we've got to kind of put the issue to bed regarding wetlands. And again, we have a delineation. Basically, it's 100 feet, but what everybody fails to realize is our code, and Bruce has said this and a number of times, delineates wetlands based on soil types. If you look at the available soils information, a majority of the site upon which these millings were placed is wetland identified soils. Until that matter is put to bed, there's not much anybody can do.
Can I take this? It's not exactly correct about the wetlands. This is
You want to speak into the mic?
This is a map off of Google. Well, no, it's a map off of the Federal Web Soil Survey. And on this map, there's a delineation of LEB, which is the Lancaster soils, and then it has, the rest of it is Charlton, Chatfield soils, which are very sandy soils. This is the Lancaster soil, which is where this, the building is. And this is the lawn area. And this is the area where the millings were placed back here and along here. The wetland soils are not in an area where there is any work that's being done, or been done, or being done. And I just want to show you something else while you're going around. Everybody here must know Big Birch. Ski area.
Yeah.
You been there lately? This is a picture of millings, a pile of millings, and millings placed over about an acre of land where Big Birch had their parking area, which was grass and mud. And if anybody ever skied at Big Birch, you know, it gets a little mushy. And the town of Patterson has installed that install those millings under a permit by the town planning board. And I just wanted to show, I mean.
But as you stated, it's a different town also. Every town has their own regulations and that, and actually, yeah, I know the area you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's an existing parking lot already too, right?
It is a parking lot, and the area behind the building where Mr. Iruzo parks his cars and did the same thing, put millings down to stabilize the soil so vehicles can get on it.
Expanded, correct? Expanded.
And the question.
I don't think it's in wetlands either, is it?
No, but we're not in the wetlands. We're not in the wetlands either.
No, but what I'm saying is that, first of all, again, it's a different town. I don't know what the regulations are in Patterson, I'm afraid.
The question is, Bruce, the soil scientist, where do you want him to do soil excavations with a backhoe? The area where the millings are placed is in Charlton Soils, which is a sandy soil. And we had the wetlands. I mean, what do you want us to do? Besides,
I'll tell you again. I'm happy to tell you again. So Mr. Carell provided a map at the original application. The map is the same, I think this is me. Let me see. That's all right. I'm still on my phone. The map that was provided to this board as part of the application is the map that has been used and continues to be used as the base map for soils in this town and has been since I've been here. It's the National Resource Conservation Service. Mr. Carell correctly provided that map as part of his application. If you look at that map, the entire central section of the site, of which at least in part the millings seem to be installed, is this Leicester B soils. Now, I have not seen this second map that's provided to you this evening. I can tell you I've seen the first one, and that's what our entire discussion has been based upon, because Mr. Kozlowski went out and did a visual inspection above grade of what he considered to be the wetlands pursuant to his experience. He found a water course and maybe some other areas, but he did not seem to consider or have the information available to him regarding the soils. And as a result, this is maybe the third or fourth time that the board has come across a project that had potential wetland soils, and the only way of determining for sure is to have a soil scientist go out and say, yep, the map is right, or nope, the map is wrong. And that's what we've been talking about for months. The aspect of where he needs to test is what I alluded to earlier at the very beginning of this discussion. Want to make sure we hit a bullseye of maybe doing a couple of tests, maybe 2 locations, maybe 3 at the most, probably 2, to dig down and find out what the original soils are and if they're wetlands or not. And that is something that Mr. Janig, if the board chooses to authorize the applicant to hire, could provide to my office, and I could review as well. John could. The second thing really is just go out there and provide the proper methodology, which would be part of a standard cookbook called the Army Corps of Engineers Manual, 1987 edition, which has a section about disturbed areas, whether the vegetation has been cut down or the soils have been disturbed or fill has been installed, and it gives the actual process of how to figure out if the wetlands were there or not prior to that disturbance. It's all we're asking to follow. It's nothing different than this board has asked 3 or 4 applicants prior to this. And listen, if it turns out that it's not wetlands and the soils are, not accurate on that map, so be it. Then we have the answer. But right now, in order to be consistent, this board has in the past had a soil scientist go out and check it out. That's all that you're suggesting. Maybe a couple test holes and following that procedure. And that's the process that I've been identifying, I believe, for months. Okay? Any questions?
What was the gentleman's name?
Paul Janig.
Janig?
J-A-E-H-N-I-G? J-A-E...
Janig.
There's an E in there, yes? Well, Paul, he submitted his resume to Vera, as well as a work plan. I think he even submitted an estimate, which was not necessary. Okay, so that's our recommendation for this board to authorize, if you wish, Mr. Janig, to provide a simple map and a sentence saying I'll follow this procedure according to the code, Army Corps of Engineers, and we can move along.
Okay, we just have to approve his resume, or we don't have to do anything?
Approve his resume and authorize that you agree he would be a reasonable person to conduct the work as identified. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
One question. The soil samples that you wanted us to take, I want to take it behind the building. As you drive in, directly behind the building where the pile of millings are. Not in that area to the west between the building and Route 84, because that area was filled in 1960 under a state, given approval by these guys. Are we going to fight about that?
But no, I think that what we're going to look at is where the millings are, right? That's the area in question. That's the fill in question. And we're going to figure out what's below them and if it's wetlands or not. So it'll be maybe 2 test holes showing somewhere in the area of the millings, maybe adjacent to them, maybe through the millings, who knows? We'll look at the map, and we'll come to consensus, and that's where we'll do the testing. Okay? It's very simple.
May I speak?
Yes.
Please.
Sure.
Greg Irizzo, Metric Motors, the owner. So my big question is simply this. That what happens with the millings? There is no wetlands there, okay? There is no wetlands there, never was, okay? The soil is bank run. It's natural soil. I have pictures of it, okay? I mean, it's crystal clear. So my real question is simply this. What happens with the millings when we determine I spend all this money excavation, disturbing the soil, right? And then finding out that there's no wetland, just rock and orange dirt. So then what happens with the millings?
So it would be a simple erosion sediment control permit if the applicant wishes to retain the millings to be there and/or to remove them. If, however, there are wetlands, then it's probable that the board will require them to be removed and brought to a different area of the site or a different area entirely. That's the answer to your question, I think.
So to be clear, there's no wetlands, the millings can stay. We just modify the site plan, show where they are, and they can stay.
That's fairly wetlands are first. No wetlands or wetland buffers, that is correct, sir.
Okay, yeah.
We don't know.
We do. I have photographs of it, and it was there. I was there 24 hours a day watching what was going on. There is no wetlands there. The contour of the ground doesn't allow it.
Respectively, sir, I think a lot of the soil scientists would turn out this respect.
Okay.
That's what we have to do.
And then I'll divvy up the bill amongst all you guys.
Listen, we didn't do this.
Okay, I guess we got a plan.
So basically, the action for the board to take, if you choose, is to authorize the applicant to agree that Mr. Janik, as indicated in his resume and materials provided to the board, is a satisfactory individual to conduct the testing as outlined in John's and my memos. And number 2, to provide a map prior to the testing showing the location of the testing that will be conducted on the site. And number 3, just a verification in writing that the testing will be done in conformance with the Army Corps of Engineers Manual, 1987, Atypical Situations, Fill Installation. So basically, those are the 3 actions to take. Number 1, Mr. Janik is satisfactory to move forward. Number 2, provide a map. And number 3, to provide verification it will be conducted in accordance with Army Corps of Engineers.
Provide a map for, sorry.
For soil testing locations.
For locations. Okay, 3 separates or?
Yeah, we can do them all at once.
Okay. We'd like to make a motion to accept the soil scientist Paul Janine, I'm hoping I'm saying it correctly, as a reasonable person to conduct the work.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, second is to make a motion to provide a map showing locations where the test will be done. Also, will it state how the test is done, or?
That's the third thing. The test will provide the location, and that'll be
Okay,
submitted to
sorry.
planning for Johnson, my
So
review.
we'll stick with just provide a map with the location where the testing is going to be done.
Right.
Okay. We would like to second that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. And the third is to follow the 1987 Army Corps of Engineers standards of conducting these tests. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Atypical situations, that's correct. Yes.
We would like to make that motion.
Yeah.
I'll move.
And second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gene, you gotta be quicker if you wanna say.
Thank you. Anything else, Jack?
We're good?
If you don't mind, I'd like to say something, then Greg asked me to instead of anyone to say something, if you don't mind. Inside there. Sean
We're on
Boyd.
overtime now, you know.
Okay. Sean Boyd, Town Councilman. So, we're going to give this to you. Here we go. So I was here for the work, one for everyone. Here you go, Mayor.
Thank you.
I was here for I was here the other night for the workshop. You guys did a nice job. Thank you very much. And so one of the things that was brought up was millings. Mr. Walters stepped up and asked some questions about it. And so I looked up a couple of things real quick online. If you look at the last chart on here, and you look at the bottom of the chart, it's the same chart that John has in his hands right now. And you look down the bottom, what is the material? Asphalt millings. Last page, look in there, if you don't mind. And then it says, am I required to sample it? No. Why are you not required to sample millings? Well, because it's a pretty inert material overall. So if you don't know how asphalt is manufactured, it starts off with crude oil that is then sent to a refinery to get into it. A lot of the bad stuff is removed from it. They heat it up to a certain temperature. At certain temperatures, things like benzenes and propane and
We're not asking to sample the millings.
yeah.
Sean.
Well, not necessarily sample millings, but so I'll get into it a little more then. You're correct as far as sampling the millings are concerned. But when they brought it up the other night that the town can refine the law on it because it's somewhat vague. And so I talked to Jamie McGlasson about this and putting together a bunch of paperwork to define millings in their use and what we're allowed to use. Because obviously we don't want people using them to fill in swampy areas, right? That's not a good thing. But at the same time, the town uses millings, the state uses millings. We store millings on property here, as far as, the municipalities. So we do have to define it, and I just want to let you guys know that we will be working on something and hopefully coming out with something soon to bring more definition to the use of millings and storage and so forth and so on. So if you guys got some input, I would love to hear it, and hopefully we'll be getting something back to you pretty soon on the subject of millings. All right? Thank you.
I'm on the next one, too.
Westfall?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a lot line adjustment that you've seen before. And the last thing I did was submit the deeds from our attorney, Bill Schilling, for each of the lots, the new deeds for the lot line adjustment. Very simple, hopefully.
Good evening. You should have a memo from me, probably didn't get distributed, and I apologize with Vera in and out. As Mr. Carell just indicated, we do have a memo from him. We have one deed, Marinelli to Westfall. We have a lot line agreement, which says the two parties are going to basically agree to do this swap, and we have a lot line drawing. We had comments. Basically, there are no proposed improvements with this action. It's merely a property transfer. You don't need a public hearing. It's a type 2 action under seeker, so you don't need any environmental review. The only thing that we need is one more deed, because according to your town code, chapter 66A, 17D, requires that the owner of the adjoining lot or parcel, you need to get a new described single parcel. So we're giving them, then you need a new description around the new.
So you need the new Schedule A.
You need and you need a deed. Okay. So basically, their engineer had requested a waiver of existing contours. We take no exception, and we recommend that the planning board grant that waiver as requested. The long and short of it is, as far as I'm concerned, our concerns have been satisfactorily resolved. We defer to Bruce with respect to any of his identified concerns. But as far as I'm concerned, any outstanding issues can be handled as conditions in any resolution. So in other words, the need to submit a deed would just be a condition of resolution of approval. We recommend that the planning board authorize a resolution of final subdivision in the matter of the Westfall lot line adjustment for consideration at your next regularly scheduled meeting. And that's a simple authorization resolution.
Okay, so authorize the resolution for the lot line for lot number 10-1-18, also known as 42 Miller Hill Woods, Port.
Yep. So I'll have that for your next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. That's for a resolution for the next meeting, but I was under the understanding that the documents that I submitted to you, that they came from Schilling, and I understood that they were both deeds. Deeds.
They were not, I did not get two deeds. I'm sorry.
Okay,
One deed, and I got one agreement.
I'll fix that. Sorry.
Well, it's not, it's going to be part of the resolution
Okay.
itself.
Okay,
You don't need it before that.
okay.
I can live with that.
And I got the next one.
Oh, you got the next one too? Look at you.
Which one is this?
Cardillo.
Oh, Cardillo.
This is Mr. Cardillo.
You know me. You saved the best for last. I appreciate it. Do you want to talk or me to talk? So at the last planning board meeting, you've asked for three things. One was a letter from the highway department, a letter from the fire department, and also to update the paperwork with Vera to change it from Annunziata to Cardillo. I was out there with the highway department. They were out there probably 6 or 7 times during rainstorms. I think the guy's name was Sean. And when he was out there through some torrential rains, he obviously gave us a letter saying that there was no runoff. I had to widen the driveway 3 feet for the fire department for their fire engines and create a swale actually for the highway department, which we did. And both of them signed off with their letters. And I believe I did everything as you requested. And Vera has all the updated bond that we needed and all the paperwork into my name. I don't believe there was anything left to do. How you doing?
So, in the matter of Cardillo, I will confirm that, yes, we have final sign-off from the fire department. It covers access as well as the grades of the existing driveway. We do have final sign-off from the town highway department. We also just recently received, I think it was yesterday afternoon, final sign-off from the health department. The septic system is installed and they're satisfied with it. Basically, the administrative matters, I will echo what Mr. Cardillo said. To the best of my knowledge and belief, everything that Vera asked had been satisfied. They did reassign the bond. They did provide a copy of the deed. So the way we left this the last time we discussed it is that the planning board basically had two choices. They could accept this as a simple field change, grant the waiver, the driveway waiver slope, and move on, or you could consider it a major impact and go back through the erosion and sediment control process, hold a public hearing, the whole 9 yards. I care not. It's been so far into this now, it would seem the simplest way would be to grant the driveway slope waiver, accept the modifications as a field change, but there has been some discussion that this is all as a result of an enforcement action. We didn't create this situation, and I'm not pointing fingers, it was created. There was some discussion of mitigation. We had talked about perhaps looking at maybe creating a rain garden. Mr. Carell went out, and it's his reasoned opinion that the rocky nature of the site and the way it lays out, there isn't a good spot that lends itself to the creation of a rain garden. We had talked about some additional plantings. Using that same logic, there isn't too many good spots left to put a tree, because most of the rock, I think Tom was out there, it's pretty rocky, and they're not sure what that would be doing. We had talked about perhaps doing some mitigation off-site. We don't have any identified sites to do such a thing. So the call comes down to the planning board is, what do you want to do? This was a result of an enforcement action. Do we just want to move on with no penalty? And if that's the case, I think what we have to do in the future is begin to create a mitigation bank so that if this happens in the future, we can get some benefit from people that violate the rules without without too much difficulty. So.
Hi. Can I just say one thing also? We did not change the curb cut or where the house matches the driveway on the plan. We did obviously move the middle edge, so I just wanted to remind you that we never moved the curb cut or where it meets the house. Yes, we didn't ask for permission, didn't realize it was needed. I apologize, that's why I've been to 5 planning board meetings. But the driveway was actually moved because the rock is so hard there that we had to move it, and I apologize for not asking for permission.
As I have said before, it's like, we didn't need to be at this position. So, and it's the same with, I know the other applicant's not here, but again, if you do proper procedures, you don't need to be here.
I had a chance to go out and look today and see if there's any opportunities to do much of anything out there for mitigation. There's really only one small opportunity, and it's maybe commensurate with the fact that the driveway location was changed, but it was done, I believe, to reduce the potential for rock disturbance out there, going up originally as approved, coming through here in this direction. Might have actually been more disturbance than what the net of it is now. However, there was some additional trees and what have you that might have been brought down as part of this. So it's kind of a apples and orange types of things. But over here, below the septic system, there's a grassy area that's not going to be really used for much. It kind of dips into the wooded area on the side and heads into the driveway. And so what I would suggest that the board do to offset the change that the applicant incurred is to have this area, and they can just give a little sketch to Vera, and John and I can look at it and move on, showing like a native seed mix there. And that'll increase the absorptive capacity over there as compared to a lawn. You can manage it and mow it twice a year, or an owner can do that. And it provides a reasonable mitigation for the reduction in the trees perhaps that occurred out there, because we're improving the buffer in another way. And it's something very inexpensive and cost effective, and I think it's reasonable for the board to impose. Okay, that's my suggestion.
Bruce, can you just repeat that mitigating measure?
So basically, there's an area here, I was just talking to Jack, and I went out and looked, and I didn't go all the way up, but there's an area here below the septic, where there's a wooded area, and there's some slopes here. That would be more of a grassy area, Tom. I'm just saying this strip here, maybe it's a 15-foot strip prior to getting into the woods, it's called naturalizing it. Let it kind of grow out, or put seed mix in, or what have you, allow that to grow and be taking the place of the buffer that might have been lost by the loss of the trees.
So it's vegetation, basically?
Basically, yes. Okay. And if that board feels that's reasonable, that's, I think, compensatory to what's been done out there, and basically everybody can move on. And all you need to do is Jack or Luke will provide a simple hand-drawn sketch, nothing fancy. We'll spec out a seed mix out there, and that way everybody can move on.
Could we get a resolution with conditions and possibly a bond be posted for whatever grass work so that you can get a CO?
I think that what I would recommend tonight, and I don't think it requires anything fancy, folks, my recommendation would be a simple oral resolution that does 3 things. Accept the driveway as constructed, granting the necessary slope waivers. Okay? And accepting the as-built condition as a field change, thereby an acceptable modification of the original approval. And 3, employing the mitigation measures specified by Mr. Barber to include an appropriate seed mix in a defined area. And with that, put it on an administrative track. And as soon as we get the sketch and agreement on the seed mixture, I would suggest you would free up Mr. Walters to issue the necessary final CO.
Okay.
Does that make sense, sir?
Yes.
Does that make
I hope
sense,
I
board
got it.
members?
I hope I got it right here.
Well, I'll stay until you do.
Okay. So we're making a motion to accept the driveway as is,
Right.
and we're going to
Grant the waivers.
grant the waiver for the slope. of the
Yes.
slopes. And the as-built.
You're going
we're
to,
we're
as-built condition as an acceptable alternative to the original approval.
As a field change?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to accept the as-built as a field change. And we're going to employ mitigation as per Bruce, as long as we come up with an agreement what the seed mixture is and what.
The defined area
protocol-
is.
What
Provide a
protocol.
sketch.
And provide a sketch for the said area.
Yep. And with that, it would move to administrative, and once we're satisfied that we have the seed mixture and sketch, you could authorize, you would release this for issuance of a CL.
So once this has all been agreed upon, we can send it to administrative track.
You can send it to administrative track now.
Okay, so we're going to, do you want the first one, what I read at first?
You don't need to reread it. Just say as it's been read and agreed to, and we can move
Who
on.
wants to make the motion to accept what
I'll make the
that's read?
motion.
Who wants a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And then, what was the last?
We're just gonna, once we're satisfied with the seed mixture and sketch, Mr. Walters will be released, be empowered to release his building CL. I'm sorry.
We agree with what you said.
Yeah, wait, it's got to be installed, yes.
Yes.
Seed mixer, sketch, and installation, and then CO can be issued.
Seed mixture, installation, a sketch, installation, and then we can release.
Yep.
I'll have the sketch to you tomorrow. You can give me the seed mixture. No, the Yankee game's on. Come on. All right, thank you very much.
I have one question. Am I able to pave the driveway now? Is that okay? Because it's still sitting as item 4, and are you okay with the paving of the driveway?
You can pave it.
You good?
You got the grant, you got the waivers.
You got the waiver for the slopes?
No.
You got the waiver for the slopes.
You can pave the driveway.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The max slope was 15, wasn't it? The max slope that was in that driveway was.
Water under the bridge.
Here we go. Flintlock storage is perilously close to being completed, I
Bruce, I'm
believe.
timing you.
Timing me?
On your marks,
Well-
get set, go.
John's gonna butt in, so he's gonna take at least another couple minutes now, so go ahead.
Flintlock Storage has made a resubmission based on my memo of completeness. It's on my desk to review. I expect to have that reviewed within the next 7 to 10 days, and we should be ready for chairman's signature.
As I said, about ready to go. Next, Rapoli property, I spoke with the applicant's engineer. Actually, today, he's working out the landscaping piece of it, and is going to be resubmitting shortly on that. Changyan Monastery, pretty much waiting for some odds and ends on that, almost done. Holly property, spoke with the same engineer, same property. They do not yet have Board of Health approval on the septic system, but he is taking over the work on the septic. Also, they are waiting for DEP's approval on the stormwater plan, so that's still hanging in there. Gailazaka, basically waiting for more information on that. The Torres property, same engineer again. The Torres, if you recall, deposited a lot of soil on their property. The board authorized a soil testing plan. It comes out that because of the depth of the soil and the logistics of doing it, they received an estimate that was forwarded to us of $18,000 to do that work. And they were saying, well, you know, we might as well just remove the soil altogether, which is going to create a hardship all by itself, too. So with the board's authorization, I'd like to see if we can perhaps, instead of doing 5 soil samples, 5 different discrete areas, if we can get maybe 1 or 2 or 1 of varied depths that provide substantial enough information to ascertain if there's pollutants out there or not, that would give us the information that's needed, but also reduce the cost perhaps by half. I asked him if that would be reasonable for his client to at least consider half. and he said he thought it would. So I'd like to ask the board if you would like me to convey to him to revise the plan and submit it to this board for the November meeting and see what you got. Okay? Then we have TJ Contracting, nothing from him. Gypsy Trail, Jackie, I think you said that
Yeah, we.
that's basically done and withdrawn. They're not going to be doing anything. Do we have anything writing on yet, Vera? Yes. Okay. Nichols Road Project and Route 52, nothing new on either one of those. So that's what we have. How did we, Gary?
Sounds good. Who would like to make a motion to close this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Who wants to second it? All in favor? Aye.